This is a moment I captured in the last minutes of a photo session I had back in early April. Nothing queued me up for getting such unique conditions at the very end of the day. The weather forecast said cloudy the whole afternoon and evening, yet it opened up for a very brief moment at the best timing to get this golden beam of light peeking through and hitting this blossom cherry tree. It really seems like faith or hope with a touch of luck could be one of the best skills to have in photography. If I had failed to be thinking that I might capture something cool, I would have stayed home, just like many other times when the forecast is not great or when I am creative at finding another excuse. So welcome to this week's video where I will be sharing what I captured over 2 afternoons of photography in the streets of Hiroshima with my 50mm lens. I'll be sharing my thought process as usual and maybe come back on what I just said about believing and keeping faith that things will turn out good. The weather on that first day was actually very good with some nice light, but even after multiple years making videos for YouTube, I managed to make one terrible rookie mistake with my GoPro settings. I turned off the hyper-smooth stabilization thinking that it was the most powerful stabilization system, and without it I would still have some sort of stabilization. I am taking photos and not doing extreme sports, so I thought I didn't need the best of the best stabilization, but I was quite surprised when I reviewed the footage and noticed that it was shaky as hell and no stabilization whatsoever has been applied. So the clips leading to the shots on this first day might be a bit shorter than usual. I could save little sections by applying some stabilization in post, but I don't want you to become sick watching some shaky footage. In a short amount of time I snapped 2 photos that are almost my preferred ones from that first day. The first one seems very mundane, but I enjoy this kind of quiet frames. A white van parked in a minimalist concrete space with a touch of color coming from the trees. There's no action or motion, but the geometry and the stillness work together to create something balanced. Everything in the composition is orderly arranged, but there is a touch of mess on the right side with the yellow barriers and other random tools, I guess. That second one is all about repetition and pattern with a little twist. It's a good example of how something ordinary, such as 2 buses parked in a row, can turn into a really graphic image with the right light and right angle. What made me want to take the shot is the repetition of the buses, and what I thought was interesting was their colors. Each one a little different, giving more visual interest to that repetition, while at the same time not having one that overpowers the others. They are all coexisting in a pretty harmonious way. Then there are those 2 men perfectly placed to put them on the right third. It gives this frame a human touch while breaking the pattern and the repetition from the buses, making for a more interesting photo. Here I saw this cherry tree branch stretching across the top like a curtain, and I thought I could use it to frame something or someone in the middle section. Then that man walked by. The timing wasn't perfect, I'll admit. I just barely caught him in the clearing. The soft blossoms, the clean green hedges, and in the middle someone casually walking makes for a balanced frame. If we look closer we can see that he's using one of these Osmo Pocket to film his trip, I guess, but he's not even looking at what he's filming. It's a bit symptomatic of our modern society where people fail to focus and be in the present moment because anyway they have the technology to record everything and leave again those moments later, but we know we don't always do. I liked here how the cherry tree stood out against the urban backdrop. There's something about that mix, soft organic forms and hard geometric buildings, that always pulls me in. The scene felt balanced, with the 2 trees anchoring the frame and the skyline filling the top half. I also like the faded colors of the building in the background. They're not trying to steal the show, just supporting the scene quietly. On that first day I was shooting with the Sony 50mm f2.5G, but I switched to the Viltrox 50mm f2 the day after to really compare the experience using them back to back. The Sony gives you the weather sealing, the aperture ring and f22 that can be useful when you are shooting video in a pinch without an ND filter. The results are not the best, but at least you can keep your shutter speed in check for the 180° rule. The Viltrox is more bare bone, but what it has more compared to the Sony is f2. You have more bokeh and more light if shooting in low light, but in terms of results, sharpness and the feel of the images, I challenge you to find a difference between the photos taken with the Sony and the Viltrox. Both are extremely sharp and have good color rendition. The Sony just gives you more guarantee in harsh conditions, so the Viltrox is a very solid option if you don't plan on shooting under pouring rain. I just look forward to the correction profile to be available in Lightroom to correct the vignetting and distortion on the Viltrox lens. At the start of the second day, the weather was good, sunny with a blue sky, but it quickly took a turn after those first few shots. I liked how the cherry blossoms were lining up so perfectly in this park with the row of benches under it. From this first angle, the blossoms don't look very full, but I decided to take a shot anyway because I liked how lively it was with the kids playing and the parents watching. From the other side of the park, the cherry blossom looked more fuller somehow, and if we look at the light, we see that it comes from the top left, really putting emphasis on the bright flowers. The lighting is also more dynamic with more contrast that we also find between the cherry blossoms and the otherwise very urban and angular landscape behind them. As I was walking the streets, I saw this orange apartment block in the background really popping against the surrounding grey and colorless structures. This is where a tighter field of view like 50mm really helps to cut out the visual noise and focus on one specific element in the landscape. With a wider lens, much more details would have crept in from the surrounding and made this orange building lose all its visual interest. There is also a row of cars in the bottom part of the frame that adds a layer of reflection and depth. As I walked into another park, I saw this man quietly reading a newspaper, completely absorbed, and I asked myself why he wasn't sitting, just standing there, leaning into the table like he was studying something important. That intense focus gave me the freedom to walk around and try different angles without him noticing. I think my preferred frame is the one where he's making a strange pose with his leg while still reading. It's such an odd, unexpected pose that adds even more mystery to this frame. There's also a bit of cherry blossom on top of the frame to wrap things up. That the weather really changed for something more moody, no more direct sunlight and a mix of very dark and lighter clouds. It was quite challenging, so I had to change a little bit my approach compared to before and the previous day. As I reached the surroundings of the Hiroshima football stadium, there was a lot of fans waiting and chilling by the nearby river. I tried to capture a few moments around there, but I think the frame that stands out a bit is this one with the group of staff people right at the center of the frame. They were neatly grouped together, having some sort of a briefing before the game, contrasting well with the other people scattered randomly around there. Other than this one, there was no groundbreaking frame, and I moved on to the Hiroshima castle outskirts. For this one, I framed the castle with the cherry blossoms, hoping to get a few people walking the shot to bring some life into the scene. I waited a bit, especially trying to catch fans wearing the Hiroshima team purple shirts, and eventually got two of them walking by in the last frame, but funnily enough, I think my favorite version is the one with the woman in red. Her coat really pops against the green turf. There's also something nice about the woman in white in this frame, standing on a tree stump to get a better angle of the castle. So given the weather conditions and the absence of light, I figured I tried something different and play with slow shutter speeds. One of the benefits of this kind of light and weather is that you can go slow on your shutter speed without even needing an ND filter. I tried rotating my camera while shooting on this first photo of the castle. The goal was trying to have almost everything blurry while keeping some sharpness in the center with the castle where the camera sensor moves the least. I like the effect it produces, and for the second one I saw a carp and some orange fallen leaves on top of the water and thought it could make a nice colorful and contrasty frame, so I tried to find somewhere on the water with a good balance of leaves all throughout the frame. Now, let's come back to the topic of faith and believing that something can happen every time you step out the door to take pictures. So, many times I find myself looking for excuses not to go out shooting photos. Maybe I'm tired, maybe I don't have enough time, so it's not worth it to go out to shoot. It could be the weather, no light, so what's the point of going out? But most of the time, it's a small voice in my head telling me that anyway, there's just no chance that something special happens, so why bother? Everything is just the same as the day before, people do their thing and move on with their lives, so there is no chance that something exciting happens out there. But having this kind of thoughts and using this as an excuse will make you 100% sure to not take special photos and be lucky to capture a singular moment. There are so many things that you can control in photography: the gear you choose, when and where you go out to shoot, what settings you use to adapt to a situation or to create something more original, but it's from the things that you cannot control, like the weather or people's behavior, that comes the spice that will make your photos more or less interesting. So, believing that every time you step out the door something can happen is one of the best mindsets, almost like a skill that you can have when practicing photography on a regular basis. Too much planning and research would have led me away from that very special moment I witnessed at the end of this second day of shooting. If I knew that this phenomenon with the light and the cherry blossom happened at this time of the year, but checked the weather to see the likelihood of it happening, I would not have even tried going there because nothing was telling in favor of such a thing to occur. Being more spontaneous and keeping faith is very important, and this you can control. You can convince yourself that something can happen every time, and you can control how regularly you go out to shoot, and you can keep this discipline. What will happen is not in your hands, but you have to be out there to capture them. Not at home debating with yourself and finding a justification not to go out today. So with that, it concludes today's video. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.